Over to you, Rabbi Dovid Feldman from the Tura Carta, on how you say, the Holy Land, Palestine, Zionism. You've got 5 to 10 minutes, like the other gentleman. Unmute yourself. Yeah, you have freedom of voice now.
Thank you very much, Moeen. It's a pleasure being with you.
Yeah, shalom. Welcome.
It's an honor for me to attend this conference and to address it, to speak to this audience.
We are blessed. By the way, just a penny's worth. There was another famous rabbi who spoke on the Messiah, twice actually, but I didn't really pin him down on anti-Zionism, yeah? But you're right. I'm not, what's the word, lavishing praise. There is no doubt for those who are, first time here, that Natura Carta are anti-Zionist, yeah? Jewish rabbis or practitioners of the Jewish faith. Over to you, Rabbi.
Yes, thank you for the introduction. Let me just clarify. My anti-Zionism, why I or the people I represent are anti-Zionist, is not just our personal opinion. This is rooted in our religion. This is what is basic traditional Judaism, what was mentioned before by previous speakers, which I appreciate. Unfortunately, when we're talking about Palestine, we're talking of one of those tragedies in our time, which is, as mentioned before, in front of our eyes. We all witness what is going on, and there is no way that we can turn, or we may turn a blind eye to what is happening. We are seeing this bloody genocide, unfortunately eradicating masses of innocent men, women, and children. Little babies are being starved to death. So much people tortured and murdered in this horrible way, as we all are witnessing. We as Jewish people the world over, I'm representing Natura Carta International. It's a global organization representing Jews around the world in the religious Jewish opposition to Zionism. We are embarrassed when all of these crimes are being done supposedly in our name, and our religion, the Jewish religion, is being misused to justify all these crimes. Our identity is being hijacked. We need to understand what is happening. Now, we also have to understand what is behind all of this. This is not only a misrepresentation of our people. This is not only an embarrassment to our people or a desecration of God's name. This is basically a propaganda tool to not only justify what is happening, using us, using our identity, using my religion to justify what is happening, but it's basically a tool to silence the voice of the righteous. If you speak up and you condemn, you criticize Israel, then somehow they blame those people of being anti-Semitic. And this is ridiculous, and this is wrong. And we should never allow this propaganda to continue. It's not only embarrassment to our people. This is a desecration of God's name. This is not Jewish at all. And we need to understand, and I will try to present from a religious Jewish perspective. First of all, I always say you don't have to be Jewish to understand that killing, stealing, oppressing a people, all of this brutality, that this is criminal. But why I am saying as a religious Jew is that these crimes are not only criminal in international law, these are crimes in Judaism. In the 10 Commandments, it says, thou should not kill, thou should not steal. This is very, very basics of Judaism. But this is not only a violation of specific rules in Judaism. The movement of Zionism, the philosophy of Zionism, is going in total contrast to the very basics of Jewish belief. This whole concept of building a sovereign homeland for Jewish people happens to be in total contrast to the very basics of Judaism, which teaches us that there is a concept of Jewish exile, which Jewish people are in for the past 2,000 years, according to very basics of Judaism. This is a divine decree. This is God's will. And this is something that Jewish people are required to accept. And here's the point, not fight against it by any physical means. This is why Jewish people for thousands of years accepted the decree of exile, regardless whether it was comfortable or it wasn't. This is very basics of Judaism. We have a tradition we have a teaching how to conduct ourselves. We are required, Prophet Jeremiah said, you should seek or pray for the well-being of the city in which I have exiled you into. That's why it happens to be the Jewish people lived in a beautiful peace in Palestine before the movement of Zionism, before the 1920s. Yes, there were already problems before 1948, before the creation of the State of Israel, because the movement of Zionism was already in Palestine with these massive provocations. But before that, before the 1920s, we lived in peace because we were never the threat for the indigenous people, for the Palestinian people. We were living there for hundreds of years and we didn't have any problem. Now, all of this is in total contrast of very, very basics of Judaism. And you would find that, and this was mentioned before, that in the very beginning of Zionism, the vast majority or almost the entire Jewish leadership opposed the movement of Zionism. And this was at the time before anybody understood how harmful this movement is going to be to humanity or to the residents of Palestine, because they believe that this is in total contrast of Judaism. But when we are seeing this unfolding, these decades of occupation, of oppression, of expulsion, of murder, and especially the recent genocide, by the way, genocide still going on, didn't stop yet, then this is just adding so much crime, so much violation of Judaism to what is going on. Now, this is in total contrast of basics of Judaism. Therefore, you find masses of Jewish people the world over, including in the Holy Land, who vehemently oppose everything the State of Israel or the movement of Zionism stands for. Now, there is no way that one should allow this misrepresentation of our religion over our people, and there's no way people should accept this accusation of anti-Semitism, because Judaism and Zionism is not the same. It's the diametric opposites. And this is something that people need to bear in mind, especially people who are vocal, people who are active. We need to understand exactly what is going on. Now, number two, and this was mentioned before, and I appreciate that, maybe mentioned by Professor Haim, the suffering of Jewish people throughout the thousands of years of their exile is something that teaches us how painful suffering is. And this teaches us that we don't want to see this happen to others. And certainly we don't want to be part of the perpetrators perpetrating these crimes. This is ridiculous. Now, for example, the Holocaust, which was a true disaster for the Jewish people. It's my family, my great-grandparents, my communities, my teachers, my mentors who I knew who were Holocaust survivors, and they told stories what happened in the Holocaust. This is something that teaches us that we should never allow this to happen to anyone. This is embarrassing, deeply embarrassing, deeply disturbing, when in the name of our people all these crimes are being committed. But I need to add, contrary to Zionist propaganda, which claims that, this is the self-defense of the Jewish people. Jewish people are in danger, and we need this safe haven. First of all, this is not the defense. This is not a self-defense. This is offensive from day one. Since it started, this is offensive and criminal. But this is in no way the savior of the Jewish people. First of all, by violating the word of God, this cannot bring safety and security for the Jewish people. As the verse says in Numbers, why are you violating the word of God? It will not be successful. Therefore, we see after those decades of all these different peace talks and all these different proposals, they never reach peace, because this is a violation of God's word. But in addition, practically speaking, the State of Israel is not bringing security. The State of Israel, with all their crimes they are committing in our name, they are causing so much death and danger, destruction to Jewish people, not only in Palestine, not only in the Middle East, but in the entire world. So we need to realize that in no way does the State of Israel represent world Jewry, and certainly not the Jewish religion. When we are seeing the State of Israel or Benjamin Netanyahu referring to some biblical scripture, and this was mentioned early this morning, we need to realize that this is the greatest hypocrisy you can imagine. You are seeing an official secular state of Israel. They don't claim to follow the Jewish religion. They have a set of rules which they don't even claim to follow Jewish teachings and Jewish law. Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't claim to observe the Sabbath or to eat kosher. And these people misuse that very same religion they refuse to follow. They misuse it in order to justify crimes which are forbidden in this very same religion. This is true hypocrisy. And again, coming back to that point, this is only used or misused to confuse the masses and more than all, to silence the voice of the righteous. And a voice, a righteous voice that Palestine, suffering people of Palestine deserve. And we should never allow that. The reason why, and this was mentioned before, whether this is a religious conflict or a political one, certainly it's not a religious conflict, certainly it's a political conflict. But just to understand why the Zionist movement does this, presents this as a religious conflict, and this is again propaganda. If they manage to confuse the people to believe that this is a religious conflict, then this is in their benefit. Why? Because if this conflict is rooted in a difference of religion, meaning that because there is a difference of religion, that's a reason why we should fight, then everybody understands that those religions will never change. People will never compromise on their religion. And then there's no solution. The only solution will be to continue bloodshed, to continue wars, to continue fighting. This is what the movement of Zionism wants you to believe, that there is no solution other than what they call self-defense or this endless cycle of bloodshed where everyone suffers. But we, again, coming back to propaganda, we cannot afford to allow this propaganda to play its role while masses of people are being genocided and while the Jewish religion is being not only violated, but unfortunately uprooted to a certain extent. Now, coming to my final point, mentioned before, one of the very important points here is what's the solution? What's the future? How can the future look like? And this is a great question everybody asks themselves, because people want to have a view of a better future than we are witnessing today. Now, this question looks very puzzling to many people, and many people get confused at that point and they don't know how to answer this question, and maybe there is no solution. But this is wrong, and this is again propaganda in order to confuse the masses, to prevent them from coming to the right conclusions. The future is very simple. Peace is very simple. And if you allow me an extra minute, I'll tell you a very short story. I'll make the long story short. I visited, together with a delegation of Jewish rabbis, in 2009, 2010, we visited Gaza. This was after the beginning of the siege. And the situation there was terrible. I'm not going to make this long. It broke the heart of all of us seeing what is going on, this destruction at that time, which was not even close to what is today. Originally, we questioned whether it'll going to be safe for us to go, even though we do know that Palestine was never the enemy of the Jewish people. Neither are they today. They are against the occupation of Palestine, against the movement of Zionism, not against the Jewish people. And this is very simple and very clear. But after all, Gaza is the most affected place from this occupation. And who knows, some people might be individuals not knowing exactly who we are, and who knows what can happen. Finally, we did go. We visited Gaza the first time for 24 hours. This was by restrictions from the Egyptian government. Second time for over a weekend. Not even once, not even one person, one bad word said to us. And this was very encouraging to us. And this is what I would like to share with everyone. We are very close to peace. While I was visibly Jewish, in the same time I was visibly the friend and not the enemy. And they had no problem. We met Ismail Haniyeh at the time, Prime Minister of Palestine, and he said to us, we have nothing against the Jewish people, neither against the Jewish religion. We are against the occupation, which is simple common sense. Therefore, we need to understand that the problem is not the difference of religions. We have to use past history to teach us how the future can look like and to what kind of a future we are looking for. It's a peace that did exist in Palestine. We, peoples of different religions, can live in peace. We did live in peace. And we must understand what is the root cause to all this endless cycle of bloodshed where everyone suffers. The root cause is the occupation of Palestine and the occupation of Palestine only. This needs to stop. It needs to stop in its entirety. Not only for the sake of the oppressed people of Palestine who deserve a better future, but we need to stop this occupation for the sake of everyone involved, including the Jewish people, because Jewish people will be far more safe in a under a Palestinian government. And guess what? Our religion would be far more respected and preserved under a Palestinian government rather than under this secular Zionist movement, which is doing everything to violate each and every law of Judaism. We need to stop all of this. We need to restore all rights to all oppressed people of Palestine. We need to allow the right of return to each and every refugee. And let's leave it up to the indigenous Palestinian people for them to choose their own government. And this will be in favor of everyone involved. We hope to see a future, as Prophet Isaiah prophesied, a day when the wolf will rest together with the sheep. No nation will lift a sword against another, neither will they learn war anymore. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Dovid. So, would you like to say a few words, Fra?
Yes, thank you very much. I'd just like to say, Gomani JD, that's the Irish language for God be with you. I'd like to thank the two other guest speakers there for their interventions. I've learned quite a lot already in a very, very, very short period of time. If I'm going to talk about Palestine, I'd like to talk about context. Now, first of all, I'm not a historian, and I am more than prepared to be corrected if I get anything wrong. But firstly, not all Jews are Zionists, and not all Zionists are Jews. So I think it's very, very, very important, as the rabbi has already done, to separate out the religious theology of Judaism with the nationalist political ideology of Zionism. And I'd like to explain, in my opinion, from someone who lives outside of the Levant, of what is happening at this moment in time and why Israel actually exists. So Israel exists because of European anti-Semitism, not because of anything that has happened in the Levant or within the Ummah. In fact, the second largest congregation of people of the Judaic faith outside of occupied Palestine is Iran. And when you speak, or when Iranian Jewish people speak, they say that they are Iranian and they want to remain Iranian, and that the religion is respected and they are respected within the constitution. So European anti-Semitism from Russia and across Europe led to this political, secular ideology that they needed a land where Jewish people could be safe from European anti-Semitism. Now, the Palestinians are Semite, but the people who have migrated and immigrated to Palestine are not Semites. Now, from what I have learned, the majority of Eastern European Jews are converts. They have no DNA. They have no historical connection to the land of Palestine. They were converts to the Judaic religion and cannot possibly claim to have ancestral roots to the region. So Zionism, through the 1880s, through the first Congress in Basel, became a political ideology. They wanted to find a land where they could protect the Jewish people from European anti-Semitism. I believe the British offered them Uganda. They looked at Madagascar, and they also looked at places like Argentina before settling on the biblical, not the physical and not the DNA connection, but the biblical connection with Palestine. So what we had was, in 1901, 1902, the Jewish National Fund buying up land in Ottoman-occupied Palestine. So they were buying land from Turkish absentee landlords. They were creating the basis and the embryo of a Jewish state within Palestine. And the seeds of apartheid started then. When they bought the land, it was for Jewish emigres only. No Muslims and no Arabs could work the land. So this is the basis of the apartheid state that we see today. That emigration was encouraged through Western finance and through European finance to buy the land to create this new embryonic state. Through the First World War, then you had the British encourage the Arab nations to rebel against the Turks, claiming that they would give them autonomy and independence from their occupiers. What transpired was they changed from an Ottoman occupation to a French, British, peak cycles occupation after the First World War. Britain encouraged further or allowed further immigration. Then you had Palestine under the British mandate, and you had this further influx continuing up until and after the Second World War. Jewish people, especially during the Second World War and just after, were welcomed in Palestine by the Palestinian people. There are stories of Palestinian families who took in Jewish refugees who had survived the Holocaust, who had fled from Nazi German fascism. They were welcomed into people's homes, and then one morning when they left the house, they came back, the locks were changed, there were people with guns, and they were told to leave their homes in the Nakba in 1948. That is how the people in Palestine, the people of the Ummah, the people of Islam, were treated by these foreign invaders and colonizers. So I'd like to strengthen the idea that a person who's born in America and baptized into the Catholic religion is an American Catholic. If you're born in Britain and you're baptized into the Protestant religion, you are a British Protestant. So Judaism is not an ethnicity. Judaism is not a race. Judaism is a religious worldwide congregation. So Israel cannot exist as an ethnic state, because if you're born in Poland and you're Jewish, then you're a Polish Jew. If you're born in Russia, you're a Russian Jew. If you're born in America, you're an American Jew. You could argue then, if you're born in Israel, you're an Israeli Jew. But my personal opinion is Israel was born in terrorism. Israel exists through terrorism, and Israel expands through terrorism. This is an imperialist, colonial, racist, fascist state. When you see what happened to indigenous people in North America, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, this is the plan for the people of Palestine. This is a colonial replacement through displacement, using what I describe as a 16th century colonial mindset, using 21st century modern munitions. So they are bombing people. They are eviscerating people. They are destroying the infrastructure, the hospitals, the schools, the sanitation. There is a policy deep in the heart of the Zionist government to ethnically cleanse, through genocide or any means necessary, the indigenous population in Gaza and in the West Bank. And let us not forget the elephant in the room, which are the 2 million what Zionists call Arab Israelis, what we call Palestinians in historic Palestine living under occupation. They will be next on the chopping block. So if people agree that Israel is not an ethnic indigenous, the Zionists are not an ethnic indigenous component of the Levant, then what we're witnessing is this colonial evisceration of the indigenous population. When you look at the Greater Eretz plan, you see that they want all of Syria, they want all of Lebanon, they want parts of Egypt, and they want parts of Saudi Arabia. So when you talk about the day after the ceasefire, when you talk about the day after for Palestinians, what we are witnessing in Palestine, we are witnessing in Lebanon, we are witnessing in Syria, we are witnessing the further expansion of the Zionist state, the only state in the world which refuses to identify its national borders. So if they succeed in Palestine, they will continue their war of aggression and occupation and colonization of Syria, as they have done in the Golan Heights. You will see it further in Lebanon, as they have done in the Sheba farms. So the Zionist state is, as the rabbi correctly stated, it's an existential global threat. It appears that they want North America to continue to be the military hegemonic superpower of the Western Hemisphere, while the Zionist state sees itself as the regional, if it doesn't have plans for global domination of the entire Levant and the entire West Asia. And they're meddling in South America, they're meddling in Africa. Their tentacles are spread throughout the world, just like the CIA, just like MI6, just like the French Securitat. These people have influence, and they look for regime change, and they look to put in compliant state leader puppets in order to promote their agenda. In finishing, I'd simply like to say that from my perspective, we are back in the 1930s. We're watching the rise of fascism across North and Western, and in fact, the whole of Europe. The whole of Europe is seeing a rise of fascism. We're seeing a rise of authoritarianism within the governments in Europe and in North America. And I personally feel that Zionists, not the Jewish people, but the adherents of Zionist political ideology, some of whom are Jewish supremacists and must be called out for their rising fascist, racist tendencies. They are trying to create a war between Christianity and Islam. They are promoting the immigrants and the refugees and the asylum seekers that are coming to Europe as an existential threat to European Christian values, with the idea that Islam will become the enemy of Christianity, and that Christianity, through its superior military power, might at a future point in time enter a war against Islam, secretly on behalf of Zionism. And my fear is that we are back in the 1930s with the rise of fascism, and that this fascism is being aligned with Zionism. We see fascist rallies in Belfast. These are right-wing thugs. Some of these people have already been in jail for domestic abuse when they're brought before the courts. And these people are flying the flag of Israel. They are claiming to be Christian, Zionists, and fundamentalists. My fear, not only for the Levant, but for everyone going forward, is that there is the promotion of antagonism between Christianity and Islam, with the idea that the Zionists are going to sit back and the Christian West will come into military contact with the Islamic East, and everyone is going to suffer. And this is about power, land, money, resources, and nothing else. Thank you.
You done, Fra?
Yes, thank you, brother.
No, okay, great. Right, we've got now, some of the points you raised was by, were you here in the morning for Dr. Olsey?
My apologies, I had another meeting this morning.
No, that's okay. That's why I usually ask attendees to, you know, it's really a whole day event, otherwise people don't know the right and left hand. Anyway, there is a reason why I've put Palestine and Kashmir together. I'm going to open up the discussion. I'm not going to hijack it, but We got 20 minutes. So those who want to make interventions, there's time. Right, couple of questions, because we're not new to this. I'm going to really go for Rabbi and Fra. I'm going to put you on the spot, because we're not new to this. Firstly, I quoted, what's his name? Norman, Professor Norman. What's his second name?
Finkelstein.
Yeah, Finkelstein, yeah. Didn't want to get it wrong. Is that, I was going to say, oh yeah, he said in his latest video, you know, he's a celebrity, that I think, I don't want to misquote him, 97%, let's just call them Jews or people of Jewish background, support the genocide. Now, this is very important, very, very important in Islamic eschatology. I don't want to put all my cards on the table about what's going to happen. That is a prominent Holocaust survivor, one of the world's top Jewish academics. I don't know whether he's practicing or not, that's irrelevant. But he defends the Palestinians, and their self-determination. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? That you have, I'm not pointing the finger at you, but I'm putting you on the spot. Probably no one has put you on the spot. You're going round the world saying, we Jews are not Zionists. I'm not attacking you, but that's your position, Now you've got another world Jewish intellectual rampant on the internet. He is saying, no. He's saying a lot of practicing Jews are part of the problem. Over to you. What's your reaction to that?
First of all, let me just preface by saying, even if it would have been true that almost the entire population in Israel supports the genocide, and even if you would find that all Jews support it, still doesn't make it Jewish, still doesn't allow it to happen, and still doesn't, still this fact doesn't say that this is allowed according to Judaism. One of my mentors once said that the value of truth is not because the majority of people adhere to it. Even if the truth will remain by the minority of people, even if it will only remain by one single individual, or even if the truth would not be upheld by anyone, the truth will still remain in its value, regardless what the people accept. Zionism is not Judaism. This is a total violation, abomination of Judaism. But it happens to be that masses of Jewish people the world over, including in the Holy Land, I'm not exactly sure the percentages, I didn't make those polls. What I do know is that there are hundreds of thousands of people in the Holy Land, in occupied Palestine today, who disagree with Israel. Now, the vast majority of these people, or at least a nice majority of these people, don't take part in any elections. They are not counted in many censuses, and so on. Now, I'm not exactly sure what this study is exactly, to whom exactly it refers, but what I can tell you for a fact is that masses of Jewish people are so vehemently opposed to the movement of Zionism, to the state of Israel. May I just mention that there is a whole controversy now in today's Israel, where masses of religious Jews refuse to serve in the Israeli army and the IDF. And this is unbelievable how our Jewish community is being treated by the Zionist regime. And just to clarify a point, people think that, you know, let's put aside all crimes being committed to Palestine, but at least the state of Israel is the safety and security for the Jewish people. But that even is wrong. The state of Israel is not here for the safety of the Jewish people. They are here for this movement, this political movement of Zionism, and on the account of whoever stands in its way. Palestine obviously is being harassed because they don't want to see the state of Israel. And it's the Jewish people who oppose them are being harassed, tortured, and sometimes assassinated for their opposition or their public stance against the Zionist regime. Now, this is just to have the things in the right perspective. Now, I must agree that anti-Zionist Jews are in the minority. I do agree. But there's so much to this, and I don't want to spend too much time now, but it happens to be that the vast majority of Jewish people, sadly, embarrassingly enough, don't practice anything in Judaism, and therefore they tend to support Zionism, because this is a whole long discussion, because unfortunately in their confused vision of Judaism that was transformed by the Zionist movement, they believe that there's Jewish identity is about this nationalism. Therefore, they find themselves that they must support this movement of Zionism, regardless whether it makes sense or regardless whether it is legal or not, because this is what their identity is all about. But all of this is wrong. All of this is a tragedy. This is a tragedy to Palestine. It's a tragedy for the Jewish people and a tragedy for the Jewish religion.
Yeah, just 1 second. I agree with you. I've got videos about clashes on recruitment to the IDF. Professor Hughes there maybe can clarify. I am aware that many religious Jews vehemently have been clashing. Some commentators talked about the rise of civil war. Who knows? Ilan Pepe, another great thinker. But what was I going to say? But you do agree that they are the anti-Zionist, Jews are still a minority, yeah? We agree on that?
Yes, sadly I do agree, but again, coming back to my previous point, this doesn't dismiss the stance of these people. This is what Judaism is, this is what truth is, and you know, let's put it this way. You know, I'm not very sure if we're going to make a poll. Let's make a poll amongst righteous and non-righteous people around the world. Know who is the minority. I'm not exactly sure what's going to end up.